Have you ever noticed how thoughts just seem to appear out of the ether, as if from nowhere? One moment you're focused, the next you appear to be imagining a conversation from yesterday, worrying about tomorrow, or talking to yourself in your head. It seems like someone inside is generating these thoughts, but who? In spiritual circles, we often hear, "You are not your thoughts." But if you are not your thoughts, then who is thinking them? This question, at its core, is simple, but its answer unravels everything we take for granted about identity and who you are. In this video, we'll reveal how this very question, who is thinking the thoughts, is an illusion. Because the moment you try to find the thinker, something profound happens. Let's try something right now. Pause for a moment and attempt to predict your very next thought. Go ahead, really try. Did you succeed? If you pay close attention, you'll notice something potentially groundbreaking. Thoughts arise spontaneously. You, as a separate individual, don't decide to think them. This points to something fundamental, the absence of a separate, isolated thinker. Thoughts appear simply as occurrences within awareness. They are spontaneous appearances without a separate entity producing them. Like waves in the ocean, they rise and fall without a separate doer behind them. In one way, you could say that the ocean is indeed doing the waves, but ultimately we realize there is no individual part of the ocean that's doing the wave. The waves are actually temporary patterns of energy influenced by the movement of the entire ocean, a complex network of energy. Thoughts are similar in that they are not owned by an individual entity. You see, even the most skeptical of us would admit our thoughts aren't entirely original. They're narratives that were given to us by our parents, caregivers, and society at large. They're earth energies from the larger mind that appear in our apparently individual mind, a mix of what we've learnt, the messages we've heard, and as hypnotists and illusionists have demonstrated, even what we might have overheard or been fed subconsciously. So, if thoughts arise spontaneously without a separate doer, then why do they feel so personal? Why does it seem like I am thinking them? The answer is identification. The mind creates a sense of ownership over thoughts. It says, "These are my thoughts. I am the thinker. These are my opinions, my beliefs, and my ideas." And many people appear to grip onto these so tightly and create a whole rigid personal identity out of them, which dominates their entire life experience. But is this true? Or is this just another belief, an assumption, another thought arising within awareness? This is the ego illusion, right? The habit of identifying with mental activity, when in reality, it's all just appearing in you, but it's not essential to you. It's you, the real you, the awareness, appearing as thought, but it's not your essential nature. If all thoughts were to disappear, you wouldn't go anywhere. Nothing would be taken away from you. You'd still be 100% you, this awareness, just without the presence of thoughts. So take a look for yourself. Look at the gap between two thoughts. Did you, the awareness, go anywhere? Or did you remain here, still 100% you? You see, we experience that inner voice narrating, commenting, analyzing, and it feels like a self is behind it, directing, controlling, guiding. But if we investigate closely, we see that this inner voice is just thoughts appearing with no separate speaker behind it. Like watching a movie and mistaking the characters for real people, like believing there's actually separate independent entities behind the voices of the characters, when in reality, they're appearances in the larger appearance of the movie. But who is watching the movie of thoughts? That's the real question. What if the I that we believe is doing the thinking is just another thought? This is the deep insight that we're pointing to. Thoughts create the illusion of a stable self that exists over time, but when you look directly for this self, what do you find? Nothing. Just the presence of awareness, appearing as everything that's appearing, including any thoughts appearing and disappearing without a trace as they do. When thoughts are identified with, they appear as a long chain of apparent cause and effect. One thought triggers another, a memory sparks an emotion fuels more thoughts, and before you know it, the mind is in a loop. This is the mind identification, when awareness overlooks its larger nature and takes itself to be a limited idea, a limited thought narrative. The key is to see that thoughts are happening, but they are not happening to you. They're not you, a separate entity, thinking them. They are conditioned energy patterns, movements within the larger field of consciousness. And you don't have to consent to believing them. You don't have to take them to be the essence of who you are. Because this is a huge dysfunction that appears in so many people's lives. Many of us have thoughts that are extremely self-limiting, dark or destructive, and we can take ourselves to be the one thinking those thoughts. Perhaps thoughts appear that are terrible judgments of others, and then we feel extremely guilty for even thinking them. Perhaps thoughts appear that talk about harming others or even ourselves, and we may feel extremely disturbed trying to desperately push them away, or believing that we're the one thinking them and perhaps actually carrying them out. So, this question of who is the thinker is absolutely crucial for all of us. It's the difference between completely different outcomes in life. You are not the thoughts, you are the awareness in which they happen. When we realize the belief in our thoughts to be highly problematic, we often try to fight the thoughts. Then we might try to silence the mind. But that's like trying to calm the ocean by attempting to grab the waves, control them, or suppress them, like a wave trying to control another wave when they're both simply movements of the entire ocean. So don't suppress the thoughts, don't resist them, don't personally identify with them, taking them to be the entirety of who you are and indulging in them. Rest as the awareness in which they appear. Witness them. The moment you see them as not you, stay knowingly aware as the awareness, they lose their power. And this isn't about denying how you think or feel, or saying thoughts are just useless illusions and trying to ignore all of them. All thoughts have some kind of information to them. They may hold a relative truth. They may often be useful and creative. They're just not the whole truth. The key is to recognize them as an aspect. Conditioned energy patterns arising. All these aspects need their voice in a way. Trying to shut them up or ignore them means they just return with a vengeance, like trying to shut someone up by trapping them behind a door until they erupt into a fit of rage, smash through the door, and burst into the room screaming. Of course, there isn't really any separate entity there, it's just how they operate. Waves don't disappear and collapse into the larger medium of the ocean by trying to suppress them. They eventually lose their energy on their own and naturally collapse as you rest, watching the dancing movement of the ocean. So let's try something right now. For the next few seconds, just observe your thoughts, like watching clouds drift by. Do you notice a shift? Maybe some spaciousness, maybe some stillness. That space is you. That stillness is what you are, not the passing thoughts. Again, they are an appearance of you. They are this awareness temporarily appearing as thought, but they are not essential to your being. They are energetic movements which dissolve on their own without personal interference. And this recognition is the beginning of freedom. There's an assumption that somewhere deep inside there is a thinker controlling all of this. But if you go looking for it, what do you find? Advaita calls this self-inquiry, the practice of turning the attention inward and asking, who am I? And when this inquiry is done earnestly, the realization dawns. There is no separate self. So here we speak of aspects, conditioned energy patterns that arise in the field of awareness. Advaita refers to this as vasanas, subtle tendencies that create the illusion of selfhood. Thoughts arise as parts of these aspects, but they are not personal. They are movements of energy playing out. When seen clearly, their power dissolves. There's a story in Advaita about a man searching for his glasses, frustrated and panicking, until he realizes they were on his face the whole time. This is like looking for the true self. You may have been searching for it as if it was hidden, but it's the one looking. And ultimately, the observer is the observed. Just like waves in the ocean are not separate from the ocean, thoughts are not separate from awareness. Try to find the gap, the distance between awareness and all the objects, the sights, the sounds, the thoughts and sensations. The objects appearing in awareness are made out of nothing other than the awareness itself. No distance, no separation between you and the world. There's just consciousness appearing as the human you in the world. This is the realization that ends the illusion of the separate thinker. We may have the thought, I'm not awake yet, I'm not seeing it, I'm not understanding this, I need something profound to happen, a new experience to wake up, not realizing those are just more thoughts. So the habit of belief in thinking seems strong, but it can collapse at any moment. All it takes is honesty, honest inquiry about what's actually going on. Are you thinking those thoughts, or did they just appear? Are they really your identity, really the truth, or just appearances within the larger, infinite you, this boundless field of awareness? There's a traditional Advaita inquiry. Can the I see itself? The I sees everything, but cannot see itself. In the same way, awareness is what sees everything, yet it cannot be seen as an object. It can't be reduced to a thing that you can objectify and grab hold of, for it's the basis of the whole appearance. So instead of trying to find awareness, rest as awareness. Perceptually relax and rest as the whole appearance, watching the aspects play out and disappear. These conditioned thoughts and emotions that seem to colour and dictate our life, they begin to lose their influence without identification. For many years, you may have felt stuck in the grip of a persistent, uncomfortable emotion, a persistent, limiting belief that seems impossible to shake. You may have tried hours of chanting affirmations, thinking positive thoughts, or focusing only on the good, and yet they always seem to rear their ugly head again and again. Yet, when you rest as awareness, when you actually feel the feeling, instead of contracting your focus onto the thinking, when you allow the aspects to arise and play out without identification, their energy eventually dissolves. The emotion is released, and the limited thinking collapses with it. The classic non-duality metaphors appear so often because they're so powerful. Imagine the sky, vast, open, untouched, with the clouds passing through it. The sky doesn't resist the clouds. It doesn't claim ownership of them. Thoughts are like those clouds. The sky isn't separate from the clouds. The clouds are, in fact, the sky clouding. but they are not essential to the sky. Without any clouds, the sky remains vast, bright, and boundlessly open. You are that sky of awareness, limitless, ever present, and no matter how stormy or chaotic the clouds become, you, the sky, remain forever undisturbed. This is the direct realization of your inherent freedom, not as a new belief or some kind of intellectual conclusion, but as the direct seeing of the nature of awareness, the nature of this, your true self. So freedom isn't about stopping thought. It's in no longer taking it to be who you are and pushing yourself into that limited identity. Because you don't have to fight to be free. You don't have to struggle to be present. That's just another identity that fights and struggles. More thinking and personal efforting to try to achieve what's already achieved. The awareness that you are is effortless. Instead, recognize it, relax into it, and let the mind do what it does without claiming it as me. And so, if you're not your thoughts, who's thinking them? There is no separate thinker. That's the illusion. There's only thought arising in awareness. This is the peace that you've been looking for. But really, who is thinking them? The true non-dual answer is a seeming paradox. If you insist on a who, you could say it's infinite awareness, not as a personal someone, but as a movement of the entire field of consciousness. The who is God, infinite being, expressing itself in an infinite myriad of forms. On the other side of the coin, you can see that there's actually no thinker at all. It's an illusion, an appearance. You see, self and no self are two sides of the same duality. The truth is non-dual, not one nor the other, yet it includes all. This is your true nature. I hope you enjoy these pointers. I've also released a free mini course to end mind identification, release uncomfortable emotions, and relax into awakened peace. If that interests you, the link to access it is in the video description. Alternatively, if you feel called to explore awakening and embodiment very deeply and actually embody this, I invite you to join Awake and Embodied. Over there, we have the deep awakening and embodiment sessions, weekly live group calls and meetings with me, all to support you with the journey. The link for that is also in the video description. See you in the next video. Peace.